Hello and welcome. It's Tuesday, Virtual Happy Hour. I'm your host, founder Greg Avola of Untapped. It is 10th anniversary week at Untapped. Exciting stuff. This Thursday is actually our 10th anniversary, October 22nd. We're super excited to celebrate it with guests this week. And also on Saturday, our big party, our virtual party that is, on October 24th between 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Make sure to go to untapped.tv or untapped.com/10 for all the information. It's going to be an amazing time, amazing guests. We're super excited to celebrate 10 with all of you out there, and it's going to be a great time as well. So with that out of the way, I want to bring on my two guests today. They're part of Beer Kulture, Chris Johnson and Latiesha Cook. Thanks for guys for being part of the show.
Thanks for having us. Excited to be here.
Yeah, very exciting. Thank you.
Very cool stuff. I'm excited to talk a little bit about what you guys are doing with Beer Kulture. I think it's an amazing initiative and want to give some opportunity to talk a little bit about that. Before we get to that, the beer is an important thing with everything we do with the Virtual Happy Hour. So let's go around the table here. Chris, what are you drinking tonight?
I am almost finished with my first of several Culture Chronicles Volume 2s. This is a collaboration. I own Green Bench Brewing Company here in St. Pete, Florida. And this is a collaboration we did with Beer Kulture. I guess it came out a few months ago. I think it was when the re-release was. It's essentially a Keller Pilsner. We do a single decoction on it. Lager for a very long time, gets really clean and crisp. And this beer is actually a charity beer. So $1 from every pour and every $2 from every 4-pack go to a local charity. Building beds, that helps build beds for kids in St. Pete that don't have them.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right, Latiesha, you're up next. What's in your glass tonight?
So tonight I am drinking New Flame. It's by Second Shift. Those are my folks out there. Shout out to Libby because she actually sent me this beer and I'm super excited to try it tonight. It is a dunkel and I love anything that reminds me of bread. And so I'm super excited to pour it up tonight.
Fantastic. And last but not least, I'm drinking, this is called Grace, which is from a local Lowe's Tavern in Pennsylvania. A good friend of mine sent this to me. I feel like we're all drinking beers sent us from friends over here. This one's a American wheat ale, nice and light and fluffy. I'm looking forward to trying it out. So if you're out there now, we want to know what you're drinking. Use the comments on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. Post what you're drinking. And don't forget to check into Untapped as well, because, you know, this isn't a Untapped show, so we got to plug Untapped from that perspective. If you're out there now, also use the Untapped at Home venue, which is a great venue to check in your beer and tell everybody that you're safe out there as well. So I want to raise my glass to you two fine people. Thank you very much for being part of the show, and cheers, guys.
Cheers, everybody.
Awesome. Well, let's get right into it here. I mean, obviously, you know, we've talked a little bit about Beer Kulture before. We've talked about it on Twitter. Why don't you just give us the lay of the land if people are not familiar with what you're accomplishing and how it got started in your mission statement for what your cause is?
Yes, so Beer Kulture is a 501c3 nonprofit. We have a large focus on increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion within the craft beverage space. We do that largely by collaborative work. So that looks very differently depending on who our partners are. That could be anywhere from, you know, collaborating on a beer to collaborating on a glass. Kicker here, we just announced our collaboration glass with Hop Culture today. So I am sipping out of that. So it looks very differently, but we work really closely with the people we partner with. We want to make sure that, you know, we're doing what we can in order to make sure that our teams are inclusive and that we are kind of demonstrating what that looks like to the craft beer world.
I mean, it's such an important topic to discuss, you know, Chris, on this. And how did you get involved with this process too, being a brewer behind the scenes here? You know, obviously it's a very hot topic that people are talking about a lot these days. What means it to you to be part of this organization and the mission that we're trying to accomplish?
Well, it means a lot for me to be a part of it. I've known Tisha and her husband, Dom, who they started Beer Kulture years ago. And I knew them right around that time when that was starting to happen. And they were kind of coming up with what their vision was for the brand itself as Beer Kulture. Obviously, I'm, you know, opened a brewery about 7 years ago. So I was kind of head down here, not really paying attention to much else, just trying to get a brewery open. But I mean, it's super important to me, namely, I mean, it's personal as well. You know, I'm a person of color. I'm biracial. My mother's Black. My father's white. There are not too many people of color in the industry as a whole. There haven't been since I've been in it. And I've been in it over 10 years now. So, yeah, I'd say on a personal level, it's extremely important. And then on a professional level, it's probably one of the most rewarding things that's happening right now. You think especially with the pandemic right now, how difficult it's been over the last 6-7 months as a business owner, as an employer to several people that have families that rely on us. It's been a very tough year, but one of the most rewarding things that I've been able to do so far this year is the work we've been doing with Beer Kulture.
Fantastic. Well, for joining us late, we're talking to Latiesha Cook and Chris Johnson of Beer Kulture. If you want to ask them a question, use the chat on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. We'd love to feature those questions and ask them on the screen here so everyone can get involved. I'll kick this off from that perspective as well. Obviously, you're looking at this from a personal perspective and you want to be able to change the industry for the good. Obviously I look like a typical beer drinker. I've got a beard and I'm white, and that's typically what we all see when we walk into bars and restaurants these days. How did this whole thing start, Latiesha? And is there a personal story that kind of led down this path to kind of say, hey, things need to change. This is what we're going to do it?
Yeah. So years ago, Dom, who is my husband and was my partner at the time, put out a book called This Ain't the Beer That You're Used to. He shared our story in terms of our son, Joshua, who passed away in 2011. And so during things like that, you kind of look for, just something to be kind of that light that you need when you're going through something dark, right? And so he started this journey of beer and started reading a book called God and Guinness, I believe. And then that sparked him to want to try Guinness. And so, being his lady, he tried to get me to kind of taste it and see if I enjoyed it. And at the time, it was like, yeah, this is disgusting. I'll pass, right? And so he was on this personal journey of kind of finding a beer that I would like. So through time, we actually found one. I started to like fruit beers. I was already into kind of like mixed drinks, so I like things on the sweeter side. And so from there, as I began to try more beer, my palate began to change, and then I just love everything now. And so speaking of where beer culture comes into play, we started finding that there would be spaces called breweries, right? So, Googling, we started to visit some. And it was nice, you go in, they're lovely people, but a lot of time there aren't people who look like you. And so what happens when you go into a brewery, you pay for your beer, you sit in the corner with whoever you came with, and you enjoy your beer, and then you leave. And it's not much of an experience. And so we started to wonder why that was. And so, we created a thing where we were like, okay, we're going to find out, is it that Black people don't like beer? Is it that they don't know about it? What's the problem? And so through our lived experience of, going to the corner store and there's nothing there but, OEs or, 40 ounces, or, talking to people who don't even know that craft beer is a thing. And so we started, putting beer in the car, hitting the streets, and really just giving out samples. Hey, taste this. What do you think about it? And we kind of, got noticed from there and started to become kind of like a voice for the community folks in the craft beer space. And so that's how we were born. And then from there, it's been a long, beautiful, sometimes painful journey.
Absolutely. I think, it's a great story to kind of see how personal life thing is kind of portrayed to a positive end when it comes to these type of situations as well. I think one of the things that are very important in today's, brewery society is, after, all the things that happen in the media from the news things, many breweries would just put social media posts about certain things, and that kind of where the line stops. So I think with your organization, you want to help other breweries kind of take it beyond just the social media posts. Can you talk about some of your initiatives that you're going after to kind of let breweries, give them an opportunity to become more diverse and become more inclusive to the environment they have both internally and externally?
Yeah. So we recently launched an initiative called Culture for the Kids. We sat down as a team and was like, okay, we want to do something that's going to give back to, our communities. Right now, it's really hard for families. They don't have the things that they need to, get their kids ready for school. And so with Culture for the Kids, we invited breweries to act as a drop-off or a pickup location for donated school supplies. We had about 30 plus breweries sign up to do that. And largely we were able to donate about 4,300 plus backpacks full of supplies to families in need. So that was a really exciting time for us. That was our first initiative. And then now we have the job board, and I'll kind of let Chris kick that off because it was like a love brainchild of ours, and it's really cool how it came about.
That's a great idea, Chris. I remember seeing it on social. Just talk us through how that came together and the meaningful impact it's had so far.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's no secret that over time, just as long as I've been in the industry, because there aren't a lot of people of color, one of the excuses that you'd always hear is, well, either Black people don't like, beer, or they're not interested, or any excuse under the sun. They don't have the money, whatever it might be. And one of the issues that as an employer that has been a problem for a lot of employers is there aren't too many people of color that actually apply to work in your breweries, or in frankly any other industry job. And so I was frustrated one night. I was kind of thinking about that, and I was like, man, what we should do is we should like put together a job board. Like we should, on our website, let's put together the spot where people can throw their resumes up there. Breweries can post, hey, we have these job positions open. If you're interested, give us a call, or just hit this link and send us your resume. And so I wrote like a text real quick to Tisha one night, kind of like, just frustrated because I was tired of hearing all these breweries and everyone telling me like all these excuses why they couldn't find people of color to work in the industry. Right. So I texted her this, and she laughed, and then she sent me a screen grab back where she actually had that written down already in her notes of like something that she had already wanted to do, and we had never spoken about it before. So she's like, all right, this goes to the top of the list. We need to do this right now since the two of us really want to do this. So almost overnight, we had the job board published on the website, and it's been great. We've been able to place several people in jobs in the industry in a few weeks of it even being available, which is just it blows my mind to be a part of something that in such a short amount of time. I think we've done more than anyone else has done in the time that I've been in the industry, just talking about it. So job board has been huge for us. Actually, we hired someone from the job board here at Green Bench too.
Fantastic. Well, I love the initiative, and I love the conversation about it, because it's something like you mentioned that you're like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. Like why has this been done before? So it's great that you guys collaborate to get out to the community there. If you're joining us today, we're talking to Chris Johnson and Latiesha Cook that are part of Beer Kulture. If you have a question for them, please use the chat, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, and we'd love to hear from you. This is a great question from Vladimir here, and Vladimir asks, what is the main reason why there are more people of color in craft beer in the United States? Is it exposure, economic, or social reasons in your perspective?
I think it's a lot of those things. For one, I'm definitely going to jump in and say exposure. When you look at, craft beer, who is it marketed to? Who are we talking to? Who is the message to? You don't really see a lot of people of color in any of the advertisement. It's not in neighborhoods where people of color live. And so largely exposure is going to be one of those things. Social reasons, maybe, that could have some impact. I think, socially speaking, in my, small circle, I wasn't frequenting breweries. It took for me to kind of stumble upon the Guinness before we even Googled to see that these things even existed. So it's a number of reasons.
Yeah, I think to piggyback on that, I mean, obviously, just to say exposure again, to kind of reiterate that, when I was growing up, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and, I was the lightest skinned person in my school, in my neighborhood, my whole life growing up, right? So there was no access to any of this stuff, right? And the beer that my family was marketed to was a completely different beer than, say, my white father was marketed to, right? No consequence to either of them, but it just looked different. The spaces looked different. If you want to talk social issues, really going into spaces that are breweries generally is dominated by a bunch of white people. It's not necessarily, it feels like a very safe place all the time for someone of color to walk in and see that. The economic side of it, there are some economic issues. It's not as simple as don't have the money necessarily, but I will say that there is a massive sort of ceiling. The barrier to entry can be really high and costly to get into the industry. And so a lot of times, just simply finding funds to be a part of a brewery, or even having like say and somewhat of an estate fund, or being able to have the privilege to work in a brewery for no money at all, basically, which is how a lot of people get in the industry. They started as volunteers, they started at minimum wage, and they worked for years and then worked their ways up. Sometimes that's just not a possibility for a lot of people. So there are some barriers that keep, I think, people that don't have the privilege to do those things out.
Absolutely. I think one of the interesting parts for me as being part of the community, as well as we are all on this particular call, is that beer is a very communal product as a whole. We all come together and we all drink together, and we're doing this virtually now, but if we were in person, we'd all be doing it in person together, right? That's what's kind of, hard to kind of grasp from my side, is just thinking about how, everyone should feel welcome when they walk into a brewery. It doesn't matter what color your skin is or anything else. Like, it should be a community-driven thing. Talking about the initiatives that you're going after here, how do you measure success? How do you measure change from this actually happening, from being the old school way of how beer used to be to where it is today? How do you measure that success of the stuff that you're trying to accomplish?
I love this question. And that's a great question, because the way we tend to think about this is, with diversity, inclusion, and equity, right? It's like this final destination that will arrive there, and it'll just
everything
be
will be
colorful.
good.
Yeah, and it'll be great. And it's like, that's unrealistic, right? We're not going to get to that point. You have to think of it as the journey that it is. And so each day as we move forward, being able to place people at jobs that weren't able to be placed before, that's how you measure. Being able to get people to come together and collaborate, that's how you measure. It's small things like that that lead us to 10 years from now, when we're looking back at this and like, oh my God, we were in a place where we couldn't enjoy this together. That's how you measure. And so just creating these experiences and providing solutions daily and showing up every day and saying, yes, I'm going to do this work, even if it's hard, it's what makes it measurable. And so, we just got to keep pushing forward and face it like that. We're not going to arrive at, this final destination. It won't happen like that.
Yeah. To sort of echo that and also add to that, something that you said, Greg, when you were talking about, beer itself doesn't have a specific culture, right? That ultimately actually is kind of the mission of beer culture. This notion that beer isn't the thing that is keeping anyone away from it. Beer can be accepted by anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, right? The point is, the culture of beer is everybody's culture. The idea is that you don't have to abandon your personal or your culture in order to be conformed to the culture that you see when you walk in a brewery or that beer has. The idea is that beer doesn't have that culture. That is a system that we have created, and that is one that we can adapt and change. And by adding people's cultures to beer, rather than forcing them to conform to what is already the standard, we will not only change the actual atmosphere, literally the optics around us, by having people of color and having diversity. We're actually going to improve that culture, and it's going to be something wholly new and better for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's very inspiring because, as someone who's been in this industry for a long time, doing more of the tech side of things with Untapped, you see a lot of things. And I think that, it's great to see people like yourself really looking at this as not okay, you just do A, B, and C, and you check those boxes. And yes, you arrive to D and you're all good. Thinking about this strategically and trying to figure out how we can make incremental change to get to a point, like you mentioned, like 10 years from now, where we're looking back like, man, we got to do all that stuff. Like, we already did it, So it's really great to see that mindset there. I think a lot of people think about diversity and inclusion sometimes as a checkbox that they've got to do. And that's just not the right way to look at it from that side. So it's very, very interesting, to see this and very inspiring to hear your story for sure. It's definitely hopefully inspired the audience out there as well to find more information about what you guys are doing as well. Because there's a great question here from Rodney, and he's asking, do you have any presence outside of Florida? Are you looking to expand your influencer further through collaborations? You talked about the hop culture. Glass is one of the things you're working on. Is there anything else in the works about expanding your reach from outside of Florida?
Yeah. So we
How to tee it up for you, okay? How to tee it
yeah,
up
that's
for you.
right. We are global, baby. Okay. We just did a collaboration with our friends out in the UK, Cloudwater.
Mhm.
We worked on a Fespier and a Marzen with them.
Mm.
And more than that, you know, we've got board members all over the world. We
Mm.
have volunteers who are signing up each day all over the world in order to spread this message of just hope and transforming this culture together.
Mm.
So yes, our presence is outside of Florida. You can be involved, Rodney Spencer, if you would like to do that as well. So absolutely.
Fantastic. We'll do this here. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the crazy things about this whole industry is that I always tell the story. I probably said it 1,000 times on this particular show. Is that you never see a company like a Pepsi or Coke collaborate together to make a soft drink. It ain't gonna happen. It's just not something that's gonna happen. But with beer, collaborations happen at all realms. I remember when first getting into beer, you see the traditional collaboration between two breweries making a beer, and it was like, oh my god, they've come together and they've made a Captain Planet, for lack of a better word. There, it's amazing to see how other types of industries are now ingrained in the beer culture as well, in the beer community. So not just brewery to brewery, it's bar to brewery, it's library to brewery, and now it's other things like this that are trying to accelerate the path forward. Ultimately looking back at your growth from where you started and to where you are today, you've got to feel good that you're making a difference in these communities here. But what's your motivation for continuing this path and continuing to try to make this as popular as you possibly can?
Motivation is getting emails from people who are like, listen, I just got placed because your job board exists. Okay. I will jump out of the bed the next day and make sure that crest in the eyes, make sure that I get these jobs posted because I know that people are relying on them.
Mm-hmm.
More so than, just getting placed at jobs is the people, right? So we think about like when we first started, why did we do this, right? Why do we do this? We don't get paid for it, right? We're all here voluntarily. What gets you up the next day? And that's the people. Like we cannot do this life alone. And this journey that we're on, it can be arduous and lonely at times. And so when you are locked armed with other people who are like, look, I know this is hard, but we're going to push through it. That helps me every day. I've gotten to a point where this was extremely hard. It's like, look, I don't know that I want to do this anymore, but thinking about my team and thinking about the people that I have around me who are relying on this work, I will continue to do it tired or not every single day. So that inspires me every day, the people and pushing for them.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, but I think, drawing a parallel here to Untap, when I first founded it back in 2010, I wasn't a huge drinker of beer. I like the whole community aspect. That's what really drove me to this kind of this job. Is I think that the people that are part of this community or makes beer great to me. And I think that the more diverse and the more inclusive we can have, the better conversations we can have and the better friendships that we can always build from this. I think, you have that old adage of, two guys at a bar and they become best friends over a beer. And that's just how it works in the world. But I think that's not just the one-stop shop. I've met so many people, lifelong relationships and friends from this beer community. I think you don't find that very much with other communities in other areas. Of course, they have different things like you mentioned, but I think that's what brings it together and what makes your initiative so special is because people already feel connected to the beer they're drinking and the friends that they're with. Now we bring in more people together to be able to have that global melting pot together, and amazing things can happen. I mean, Chris, obviously being at a brewery, have you seen some, obviously improvements in some of the people coming in? Obviously with COVID, people aren't coming as much as they have, but do you see some of the work that you're doing in your everyday world that really makes a difference in your eyes?
Yeah. I mean, like Latiesha said earlier, I mean, it is incremental. It's not necessarily, we're not going to change the world overnight, right? The world changes by a little bit every second. That's all we can really do. And so, but yeah, I would say that the industry looks different when I got into it 12 years ago to what it looks like now. And I think for the better, and I see it going in a direction for the better, and ultimately that's my motivation. It's obviously at the beginning, I've kind of mentioned how personal this is to me, not having other people of color in the industry and sort of feeling alone a lot of times, going to festivals and feeling alone, going to conferences and feeling alone. being told by a bunch of white people sometimes, that you are the token, when really they're right. You kind of are. And it sucks. So, you want that to change because that there are people in this world that are going to make this industry better by contributing to it. The issue is making sure that they have access to it. So I think there's that personal level. And then there's also just the fact that I love this industry. I fell in love with beer. I fell in love with the community. Actually, that's what originally got me into beer. I went to a homebrew meeting when I first bought my homebrew equipment, and I walked in, and it wasn't a lot of people. There were 40 people maybe there, but there was a black woman, there was an old man, and there was an old lady, and there was there were young people, there were kids in college. There was it was just this group of people that were so excited that somebody else was interested in the same thing they were interested in. And I was like, this community is incredible. Like, beer is amazing. And of course, as I grow in the industry, you realize how unique that situation actually was, and how lucky I was that my first interaction was with a diverse group of people in the industry. That doesn't happen really in this industry. So, part of my responsibility by opening a brewery and becoming a leader in the industry has been to try to leave it better than when I found it. And the only way that I'm going to do that is if I make sure that the right people, that more people have access to actually making it better. It's not going to be me. It's not going to be Tisha. It's not going to be you, Greg. It's not going to be anybody. It's going to be a collective group of people around the globe that care about each other and care about the industry.
Couldn't have said it better myself, but unfortunately this guy says that you make amazing beers, and so I don't know if you know him. There you go. He said the truth right there. So thank you, AJ, for your comment there. I think it's amazing, and there's some great comments here about this. It's from EMSA. You guys are both rad. Thanks for working so hard. Sounds like you know those people as well. But,
boy. We know them and love them.
We know them quite well. They're great.
I think the best part, like you mentioned, is about, your motivation is for the people. And that's what it's all about. It's not about, cashing in here or making it more of a power thing. It's about making differences in the community from a perspective of the things we all love. And, that is a pretty amazing message that I'm so happy that I got a chance to talk with you guys about today. But wanted to give you an opportunity to have the floor for our last minute here to give people information about where they can find you on the internet, social media. And I want to thank you so much for being part of the show today. I know I learned a lot, and I hope the community did as well.
Yeah, you can find us at beerkulture.com on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and www.beerkulture.com. Beer Kulture is spelled with a K.
Yes, and Greg, I want to say thank you so much for having us, man. This means a lot. Part of the way that we're going to be able to do this is if platforms like yours and people like you are interested in having these conversations and are interested in helping us try to make this industry better. So thank you. And I'll plug Green Bench too. 100%. Go Green Bench.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. And Tisha, it's been a great conversation. And, I'm so happy to meet you guys. And I know I follow you guys on Twitter, and we always talk, but now we have got a face-to-face, and so we continue to move it forward. And really appreciate your time this evening.
This is great. Your time.
Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Cheers. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for watching our Tuesday edition of Virtual App Beer. I hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed something and learned more about beer culture. Remember, this is the anniversary week for Untappd. We're turning 10 years old. The official day is Thursday, October 22nd. And to celebrate, we usually have a party every single year at Pony Bar in New York City. And Dan McLaughlin, we've had him on the Virtual App Beer before. We're going to go back to that again and do a virtual Pony Bar virtual happy hour from there. So it's going to be pretty crazy. This Thursday, October 22nd from 7 p.m. to 7:30. And then finally, if you can't make that, the big granddaddy of them all, this Saturday, October 24th, 3 to 6 p.m. We have some amazing things happening on our anniversary party. Tune in to untappd.com/TV, untappd.tv. Anywhere you find us, we'll be there. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a good night, everybody.